Aquarius, pause for a moment. If someone from your past has been crossing your mind lately, not randomly, not emotionally, but quietly, this message is already working its way toward you. Because this isn't about love coming back. It's about a test coming back. Someone is circling your energy again. Not to repeat what was, but to see who you've become. And here's the warning most people miss: the danger isn't them. It's the part of you that remembers how good it felt before it hurt. If this already resonates, leave a Aquarius in the comments and let this message meet you where you are. Now take a breath, because what's returning isn't asking for your heart, it's asking for a decision. And what you choose next changes the entire direction of this story. Aquarius, there's something you should know, and I want to say this gently, like a friend sitting beside you in a quiet room. When this person drifts back into your awareness, it doesn't arrive loudly. It comes in moments you're not trying to remember. A pause while driving. A stillness before sleep. A thought that doesn't hurt anymore but doesn't fully disappear either. That's usually how it begins. You've grown since then. Not in a dramatic way. Not in a way others easily notice. But in the way you breathe differently now. In the way silence no longer scares you. In the way you don't rush to explain yourself. And that's important. Because what's unfolding isn't here to pull you backward. It's here to measure the distance between who you were and who you are now. Aquarius energy doesn't cling. It observes. It questions. It watches patterns instead of reacting to them. So when this return approaches, you may feel oddly calm, not excited, not afraid, just aware. Almost like your soul recognizes the moment before your mind does. Here's something few people say out loud. Sometimes people don't come back because they miss you. They come back because the life they chose couldn't carry the weight of who they avoided becoming. And that realization can be heavy. You might notice them reaching out slowly, testing the air, feeling for the version of you they remember. But what they'll find instead is someone steadier, someone quieter, someone who no longer needs to be chosen to feel whole. That shift matters more than you realize, because this moment isn't asking you to decide anything yet. It's asking you to notice, to feel the difference inside your body when their name appears. Does it tighten you, or does it simply pass through? That question alone holds more truth than any conversation ever could. There's a kind of power that comes with emotional maturity. Not the loud kind. Not the kind that proves a point. But the kind that allows you to sit with uncertainty without betraying yourself. You've earned that. And this is where the healing begins to deepen. Not by reopening old wounds, but by realizing they no longer control you. What's returning isn't here to disrupt your peace. It's here to reveal how much peace you've already built. So let me ask you something, and answer it only for yourself. If this person were to stand in front of you today, without promises, without explanations, without apologies, would you recognize them, or would you recognize yourself first? Take a breath with that. Because the story unfolding now isn't about the past knocking on your door. It's about whether the present version of you even needs to answer it. And that realization, that's where the real journey begins. Alright, stay with me, Aquarius. I'm still right here, not as a guide above you, just as someone sitting close enough to notice when your breath changes. The presence you're feeling now isn't unfamiliar. It doesn't need a name yet. It carries a texture instead. A familiarity that doesn't ask permission to surface. This is someone who once stood inside your everyday life. Not at the edges. Not briefly. But in the ordinary moments that build real connection. They knew how you laughed when you were tired. They recognized the silence you slip into when you're thinking deeply. They saw the version of you that doesn't perform or explain. That kind of closeness leaves an imprint. Even when time passes. Even when distance stretches wide. And yet, what makes this moment different is not who they were to you. It's who you are now in their absence. You've always been an observer of people, Aquarius. You notice patterns before others admit they exist. You sense shifts in energy long before words catch up. That's why this recognition arrives quietly, almost respectfully. You're not being pulled. You're being shown. What's interesting is this. People often believe someone returns because love is unfinished. But more often, they return because meaning is unfinished. Because something inside them stalled at the moment they walked away. And life has been nudging them back toward the place where growth stopped. That doesn't make them weak. It makes them human. Still, their realization does not obligate your response. You may sense them reaching from a distance, not directly, not boldly, but through timing, through coincidence, through subtle alignment that feels too precise to ignore. And here's where your wisdom lives now. You're not rushing to interpret it. You're letting it reveal itself. There's a quiet maturity in that. The kind that only comes after disappointment has softened into understanding. After anger has released its grip. After you've learned that not every connection is meant to continue in the same form, sometimes a person returns simply to be seen clearly, by you, by themselves, by the universe. And sometimes the most compassionate thing you can do is allow that recognition without rewriting your future around it. So let me ask you something gently. When you imagine them standing across from you now, do you feel smaller or more centered? That response matters. Because the connection unfolding around you isn't demanding an answer yet. It's still unfolding in quiet ways you can feel but don't need to explain. There's another layer beneath that softness, Aquarius, and I want to step into it gently with you. Because this part isn't dramatic, it's honest. They tried to move on, not just telling others they were fine, telling themselves. They filled their days, they made plans, they smiled in the right places. But something never quite settled inside them. What they didn't expect was the silence, not the peaceful kind, the kind that echoes, the kind that asks questions late at night when distractions no longer work. Without you, life didn't collapse. It simply lost its color, and that frightened them more than heartbreak ever could. They thought leaving meant freedom. But freedom without meaning feels empty. And emptiness has a way of pulling old truths to the surface. You see, you were never just a person in their life. You were a mirror. You reflected parts of them they didn't want to face. Their vulnerability, their unfinished healing, their fear of not being enough. When you were gone, those things had nowhere left to hide, so the discomfort set in. Not loud at first. Just a quiet dissatisfaction that followed them everywhere. Moments that should have felt successful didn't land. Connections that should have felt exciting felt thin. That's when the regret began to whisper. Not in words, in sensations. A tightening in the chest. A heaviness they couldn't name. A knowing that something essential had been mishandled. This isn't about punishment. Life doesn't work that way. It's about contrast. Sometimes the universe removes a light so someone can finally see how dark their inner room has been all along. And here's the truth most people won't admit. They didn't reach this realization from strength. They reached it from exhaustion. From hitting a place where pretending stopped working. From touching a low point they never imagined you had been quietly protecting them from. You were stability. You were perspective. You were the calm they underestimated. That realization humbles a person. But Aquarius, listen closely now. This awareness is theirs to carry, not yours to fix. You didn't cause their fall. And you are not responsible for lifting them back up. What's powerful is that you can sense all of this without being pulled back into old patterns. You've grown into someone who understands that compassion does not require self-sacrifice. So, as this truth settles around you, notice what it awakens inside your body. Not your thoughts, your body. Do you feel pressure to rescue or permission to choose? Because sometimes the deepest healing moment is realizing you can witness someone's awakening without stepping back into the fire with them. And I wonder, Aquarius, if they stand at the bottom looking up now, do you feel like a destination or like a reminder of who you've become? Stay with that question. It knows where this journey is heading. It settles in quietly now, not as noise, more like a familiar ache behind the ribs. Listen to me for a moment, Aquarius. Not as a warning shouted from the outside, but as a voice sitting beside you in the dim light, speaking softly so you do not have to defend yourself. The real danger was never the person. It was never their words, their timing, or their sudden return. The fragile place is subtler than that. It lives in memory. In the way your mind reaches for the best version of them like a photograph warmed by years of longing. You remember how they looked when they were trying. How their voice softened when they needed you. How you felt seen in moments when the world felt distant. And without realizing it, the mind edits the story. Sharp edges blur. The nights you cried alone fade into background noise. The reasons you had to walk away begin to feel exaggerated, almost unfair. That is where caution is needed, not because you are weak, but because you are generous in a way few people understand. Aquarius, you love with clarity. You think before you feel. You analyze patterns, intentions, possibilities. But when someone reaches past your intellect and touches your loyalty, your shared history, your future visions, you soften. You give space. You believe growth is possible because you yourself have changed. And here is the quiet truth most people will never say out loud. Just because you have evolved does not mean the past has learned how to meet you there. Sometimes the phrase "maybe this time it will be different" is not hope. It is nostalgia dressed up as wisdom. And nostalgia can be persuasive. It speaks in a voice that sounds like home. You are not wrong for remembering the beauty. You are human. You are wired to protect meaning, not pain. But healing asks for something braver than forgiveness. It asks for honesty without romance. Ask yourself gently, without judgment. When you imagine them now, are you seeing who they are today, or who you needed them to be back then? There is a reason the universe brings certain people back around only after you have grown strong enough to choose differently. Not to test your endurance, but to reveal your discernment. You no longer need to prove that you can love deeply. You already did that. What you are learning now is how to love wisely. How to recognize that some connections completed their purpose even if they never closed neatly. If there is hesitation in your body when you think of opening that door again, listen to it. That pause is not fear. It is intelligence refined by experience. And let me ask you something, quietly, just between us. If you met this person for the first time today, with no history, no memories, no emotional investment, would you choose them again? Sit with that question. No rush. No pressure to answer. Because sometimes the most powerful act of love is not giving another chance, but honoring the one you gave yourself when you walked away. Stay here with me. There is more clarity ahead. There is a quieter tone now. Not urgency, not longing. Something slower moves in the air like a breath taken after a long night. If they reach out, Aquarius, it will not be casual, not a joke, not a check-in disguised as friendliness. It will carry weight. You will feel it before you read the words, in the way your chest tightens just slightly, in the pause before you decide how to respond. They will want to talk. Really talk. The kind of conversation that asks for a table, 2 chairs, and time that is not borrowed. They will want to name their mistakes, to explain the parts of the past that never made sense, to tell you what they did not know how to say when it mattered. And for a moment, you might feel that old tenderness rise. Not because you forgot the pain, but because sincerity still moves you. It always has. You will hear regret in their voice, not theatrical, not dramatic. More like a tired honesty that arrives after life has stripped someone down. They may ask for time. They may ask for patience. They may ask, carefully, for one more chance to try. And this is where your growth becomes visible. Because Aquarius, you are no longer impressed by awareness alone. You have lived long enough to know that understanding a mistake is not the same as having the strength to live differently afterward. Good intentions are real, but they are fragile. They bend easily under pressure. This time, something inside you stays still. You listen without rushing to rescue the moment. You let the silence exist. You notice what is being offered and what is quietly missing. Words once meant everything to you. They were bridges. They were promises of possibility. But experience has taught you a deeper language: consistency, follow through, behavior that holds its shape when life gets uncomfortable. It does not mean they are lying. It means they are human. And humans often speak from hope before they have built the structure to support it. There is compassion here. Real compassion. But it is no longer self-abandoning. You may find yourself asking a different kind of question now. Not can this work, but what would this require from me again? What would I have to shrink? What would I have to carry? What parts of myself would I need to silence to make this easier for them? And you notice something important. Your body does not lean forward like it used to. It waits. It observes. It trusts its own timing. That is maturity, not hardness. Not closure disguised as coldness, but discernment that came from surviving your own openness. Let me ask you something gently. If words were removed from the equation entirely, if only actions were allowed to speak, would their presence still feel safe? You do not have to answer yet. Some truths reveal themselves only when you give them space to breathe. Stay with that feeling. Because what comes next is not about what they want. It is about what you are finally ready to protect. There is a stillness now. Not empty. Intentional. This moment was never meant to rush you. It arrives softly, almost respectfully, as if life itself is lowering its voice to see whether you will listen differently this time. What you are standing in now is subtle. It does not announce itself as fate or destiny. It feels more like a quiet crossroad inside your chest, where 2 familiar instincts pause and look at each other. Aquarius, you have always carried compassion easily. You see the story behind people's wounds. You understand how pain shapes behavior. That gift once made you generous to the point of self-forgetting. But something has shifted. You are no longer confusing empathy with obligation. This is the real test. Not whether you care. You do. You always will. The question is quieter than that. Will you choose kindness that costs you peace, or kindness that includes you? You may notice memories knocking gently now, not loud, not demanding. Moments that once felt warm. Laughter that still echoes in certain corners of your mind. They are not enemies. They are reminders of who you were when love felt limitless. But peace has its own language. It does not beg. It does not explain itself. It simply exists and asks whether you are willing to protect it. This return does not require a reunion to be meaningful. Sometimes closure comes disguised as opportunity. Sometimes healing is not about going back, but about responding differently. You are not here to prove how much you can endure anymore. You are here to practice discernment, to see whether a door opens from strength or from habit. There is no punishment in choosing yourself. There is no failure in saying no to a familiar story that no longer fits the person you have become. Karmic moments are often misunderstood. They are not about reward or consequence. They are about awareness. They show you where your patterns once lived and ask whether they still belong. You may feel a quiet power in holding your boundary without anger, in listening without surrendering, in allowing someone else to face their own reflection without rushing in to soften it. This is growth that does not need witnesses. Ask yourself gently, if peace is the standard now, what choices naturally fall away? Notice how your body responds when you imagine choosing calm over connection. Notice the relief that does not argue. That is your inner compass speaking in a language older than logic. Whatever unfolds next will not define your worth. Your worth has already been proven through survival, through self-awareness, through the courage to feel deeply and still remain whole. This moment exists to show you something simple and profound. You are no longer here to repeat the past. You are here to close a loop with grace or step into a new kind of connection, one built on clarity, reciprocity, and respect. And as this energy settles, something even quieter begins to form. A sense that the next chapter will not ask you to abandon yourself at the door. Stay with that feeling. Because what comes next is not a test of love. It is a confirmation of who you have become. There is a different kind of clarity that arrives around this stage of life. It is not loud. It does not rush in with fireworks or dramatic realizations. It settles in quietly like morning light through a familiar window, and suddenly you see the room exactly as it is. Aquarius, at this point, love feels different in your body. It no longer pulls you forward blindly. It asks to walk beside you instead. You have lived enough to know the difference between intensity and intimacy, between chemistry and compatibility, between being needed and being chosen. When you were younger, being essential felt like love. Being the one who could hold things together, the one who understood, the one who stayed when it was hard. That role shaped you, strengthened you, but it also asked you to carry weight that was never meant to be yours. Now something inside you refuses to do that again. Not from bitterness, from wisdom. You no longer want to be someone's lifeline. You want to be someone's equal, someone who arrives whole, not leaning on you to survive, not reaching for you only when they are lost. This is where your standards quietly rise. Not because you expect perfection, but because you understand effort that is consistent means more than words spoken at emotional peaks. You can feel it now, that subtle pause you take before opening your heart. That moment where you ask yourself, does this feel steady, or does it feel familiar? There is a difference. You know it. At this age, love is no longer about fixing or proving. It is about witnessing. Watching how someone shows up when no one is watching. How they take responsibility for their own healing. How they move through life when comfort is not guaranteed. You are not asking for someone who has never failed. You are asking for someone who learned from their failures without needing you to guide the lesson. And if someone truly has changed, they will not rush you. They will not pressure you with promises. They will not ask you to trust words alone. They will let time speak. They will respect your pace. They will understand that trust, at this stage, is built through presence, not persuasion. Here is a quiet question to sit with. Does this connection bring calm to your nervous system, or does it wake an old vigilance you worked hard to heal? Your body knows the answer before your mind explains it. This phase of your life is not about closing your heart. It is about protecting its peace, about choosing relationships that expand your life, not ones that consume it. You have earned the right to want mutual effort, to want emotional maturity, to want a love that stands on its own legs. Nothing is being taken from you right now. Something is being refined. And as you hold this awareness, notice how the air feels lighter around your decisions. Notice how choosing yourself no longer feels like guilt, but like alignment. There is more ahead, more clarity, more truth, and a deeper understanding of what you will no longer negotiate away. Stay here for a moment, because the next shift is not about who comes toward you, but about how firmly you stand in who you are now. There is a quiet authority in this moment that belongs only to you, not control, not resistance, but choice. Aquarius, you can feel it now. That steady presence inside your chest that does forward and does not retreat either. It simply stands, awarened, ground available to chaos. You are no longer standing at a door wondering whether you are allowed to decide. You are standing as someone who knows that every opening and every pause comes from your own timing. You do not need to slam anything shut to be strong. You do not need to prove openness by rushing into old spaces. There is a maturity in letting things unfold slowly, in allowing truth to reveal itself without interrogation. Watch how people move when they think nothing is at stake. Listen to what remains consistent when emotions settle. Notice what feels calm instead of what feels urgent. This is not hesitation. This is discernment. You have learned that boundaries are not walls. They are agreements with yourself. They are the quiet promise that you will not abandon your well-being just to keep something familiar alive. And here is something important to remember. Karma is not dramatic. It does not arrive to punish or reward. It arrives to mirror. What is returning now is not here to hurt you. It is here to see whether you respond from who you were or from who you have become. You are allowed to take your time. You are allowed to say not yet without guilt. You are allowed to say no without explanation. You are allowed to say yes only when your whole body agrees. There is no rush written into this moment. What is meant to align with you will respect your pace. What cannot will reveal itself without you needing to chase clarity. Ask yourself something gently. Does this situation ask me to shrink back into survival, or does it invite me to stay rooted in my growth? The answer may not come in words. It may come as a feeling of ease, or a tightening you no longer ignore. Trust that. You have already done the hardest part. You broke the cycle once by choosing yourself. Now the lesson is softer, but deeper. It is about staying aligned even when familiarity tries to speak louder than truth. It is about choosing peace without closing your heart. It is about allowing life to show you that you do not have to suffer to prove your capacity for love. The most powerful thing you can do now is nothing dramatic at all. Stay present, stay observant, stay honest with yourself. And know this, whatever path you choose from here will not repeat the past unless you ask it to. You are not here to relive old pain. You are here to choose a higher version of yourself, one quiet decision at a time. And as this story gently settles, something new begins to form. Not loud, not forced, just real. Stay with me. Because what unfolds next is not about them anymore. It is about the life that opens when you fully stand in your own authority. And before you go, Aquarius, let this moment land gently. Everything you just felt was not random, not imagination, not coincidence. It was recognition. You recognized yourself in a higher light, not as someone waiting to be chosen, but as someone who chooses consciously, quietly, powerfully. If this message found you tonight, or in the early hours of the morning, or in a moment when your heart felt unusually still, know this. You were meant to hear it exactly now. Nothing in your life is falling apart. It is rearranging around your truth. You are not losing anyone who was truly aligned. You are shedding what cannot walk beside the version of you that has finally learned to trust their own timing. Take a breath with me, slow, deep. Let it settle into your chest. This is the energy of Aquarius at its highest. Clear mind, open heart, unshakable inner authority. If something in this journey resonated with you, if a sentence felt like it was written just for you, leave a comment below. Not for me, for yourself. Name what you are choosing now. And if this space feels safe, if it feels like a place where your growth is honored, stay connected. Subscribe. Because the journey does not end here. More messages are unfolding. Deeper clarity, new chapters, different doors opening at the right pace. Above all, remember this, you do not need permission to trust yourself anymore. You are already aligned, already guided, already enough. Until the next message finds you, walk gently, stand firmly, and keep choosing the version of you that feels like peace. The journey continues.